Simmons is averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists this season. First overall pick of the 2016 draft. Will lead his 76ers against the Portland Trail Blazers tonight at 9. With that, let's welcome in the 76ers point guard. Ben, before the season, you said that you wanted to make sure you mastered your scoring around the rim, that you weren't going to attempt three-point shots until you did that. Well, you still haven't taken one this season, shooting 62% from the floor in the month of December. What is the number you're looking for before you start taking those three-point shots?
I think just getting comfortable with my game and evolving over time. And it starts, day by day. It's not something that I'm just going to jump into and start doing. I'm going to get there over time. I've been working every day, working hard and getting everything right and trying to get better and just trying to lead this team.
Joel Embiid has talked about how soccer contributed to his ability to move as a big man in this league and move well. Obviously, at your size, your ability, 6'10", handle the ball, see the floor, move up and down the court like a guard. What do you think contributed to your ability to be able to do that?
I have no idea. I think maybe playing Australian football, I have no idea. I think just as a kid, my dad used to tell me to dribble the ball. And being a 6'10", point guard, point forward, whatever you call it, has its advantages, as you can see. But, I've always been comfortable doing that ever since I was a kid.
Hey, Ben, first, I want to congratulate you and commend you on the fact that you didn't allow the game to pressure you to try to do things that you don't do well at this stage. And you understood who you are as a player. And right now, your best way to impact the game is by dominating the paint. So, but knowing that, did you feel any pressure when you came into the league that maybe you had to think about trying to add that to your repertoire, or were you always comfortable in knowing, you know what, I'll get to that at some point. Let me establish who I am, my identity as a player now, and worry about that later?
For me, it was kind of tough towards the end of the season. I'd hear all these things about shooting the ball, things like that. But for me, I took a step back and looked at, what I was averaging, how our team went, how my first season went. And I think we went very well. I think my season that I played was pretty, if you look at the accolades and stats that I had as an individual player, they were great. And I know I'm going to get to that level. It takes a lot of time, work, dedication, all of that. But for me, I think it's just playing the game, having fun, and trying to evolve and not worrying about the outside noise.
And we have footage of you. I know you work on the three-point shot, and you're going to continue to put the time in there. But again, to your point, most young players, they tend to focus on their weakness and play to their weakness. You were unique in that regard, in my estimation, by coming in and understanding why you were the first pick. They didn't draft you to shoot threes. You weren't the first pick because of that. You were the first pick because of all those other attributes that your game has displayed over this year and a half that you've been playing the game. So from a coaching standpoint, your coaching staff, do they talk to you about that aspect of it, or do they want you to continue to be who you are and grow in that area? Because you can still improve, even though you've got gaudy numbers, there's still a lot of areas that you can improve in that I'm sure you realize what happened to you guys in the postseason last year.
100%. I think it comes down to just time. This is my second year playing. So for me, I'm not, forcing anything. It's going to happen over time. I'm going to continue to get better. Coaches do want me to take more shots. And I think, that's one of the things that I've always looked at as, I don't want to be the selfish guy on my team. But I understand, if it's going to help the team get better, then I'm willing to do that. And yeah, I think, the way our team plays is we love to share the ball and make the right plays. And I'm always, that guy who wants to make the right play.
Certainly doing that, averaging almost a triple-double in just your second year in the league, and 17 career triple-doubles so far in just your second year. Ben Simmons, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Gia, you raise a great point. A lot of times when players come to the league, especially a #1 overall pick, we start picking at the things that they don't do well, right, Candace? And you look at what Ben Simmons is doing right now in his second year, once again, almost averaging a triple-double. Just 1 assist, 2 assists shy, 1 assist, 2 rebounds shy of doing that.
Well, Chris, you said it earlier. Would we be talking more about this had Russell Westbrook not done what he's done over the last 2 years? And he's kind of normalized a triple-double. In this era, we've seen guys like LeBron James, like Russell Westbrook, like a Ben Simmons that can come out, even a James Harden that can come out night in and night out and get their teams defensive rebounds, assists, and points. And, you know, he is 21, 22 years young. I think he might be younger than that. And we're judging a guy that is basically putting up outstanding numbers on what he can't do instead of what he can. He can get to the basket at will. And Philly is still trying to figure it out. I mean, they had a run last year in the playoffs, in the postseason, but they're still trying to balance how they're going to play Embiid and Simmons together.
Yeah, and more importantly, I mean, his assists are down a tick, but everywhere else across the board, he's up slightly. And more importantly, he's becoming a better player. And I think it's very true that the best players are the guys who understand who they are and play to their strengths. And the point I made about, you know, they didn't draft him. You see it all the time. Guys will come in, they drafted you because of what you do well, not because of what you might do. You know, you've shown an ability by being the number 1 overall pick that you have special skill set. And that's what he's established. The other thing that's really impressive that gets lost in all this, they won a playoff series in his rookie year last year. And he was an integral part of that. And generally with younger players, even if they have statistical success, they don't necessarily translate that into wins and losses early in their career. You look at the last 2 rookies of the year prior to him, they're in Minnesota. They weren't sniffing the playoffs until they made that trade to get Jimmy Butler. So for him to do what he did that first year with that young upstart group, getting them in the postseason, winning a first-round series, that bodes really well for their development as a core group moving forward.
Yeah. Candace, that last point that Jimmy made really stuck with you.
Well, yeah, we were in the studio on Thursday, and, you know, Chuck said something very interesting. He said that as he grew older and matured as a player, he understood that you can't be a teammate to everybody the same. You can't yell at everybody. There's different factors that motivate different players, and the more you learn that and the earlier you learn that, the more successful you'll be. And I think just from his trade from Chicago to the Timberwolves and now to Philly, he understands that things that motivate certain players, you know, don't work across the board. And sometimes you have to change a little bit of how you communicate. And not that the expectation of a teammate should fall or should drop, but the way that you communicate that, you know, obviously really says a lot about how he has to go about things.
Yeah. What I took away from the conversation that he had with KG, what I thought was a great interview, is when you look at Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, like, they want to be great. And I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but not everybody in our league wants to be great. Not everybody wants the responsibility of being great, because there comes a lot of arrows with that. There comes a lot of vitriol. There comes a lot of hatred, and not everybody is built for it. And I think that's the one thing that he sees in Embiid that maybe in Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, they hadn't matured to that point. And so when you're a guy about to turn 30 and you want to have a chance to compete at the highest level, you want guys that get it sooner. And I think that those two guys get it in terms of the attention to detail, the fact that they want to be great, that you listen to how they talk. You know, and Embiid holds himself to a high standard. If he's not good, he's the first to tell you, I suck tonight. I got to be better. Like, and those are the attributes that the great ones show. Like, in this business, you got to be able to hold your own self accountable. You got to be willing to look in the mirror, and it can't always be someone else's fault when you don't perform well. You know, and that's, I think we got a little bit somewhat in Minnesota. Rightfully or wrongfully, that's what I took away from that. I think he feels with these guys, they ride or die. Like Simmons and Embiid, they're trying to win championships. They're not trying to win the PR competition. They're trying to win. And I think he feels like that's what I want at this stage of my life, is to be on a group or with a group like that.
I think the thing we can see, we can look at all the stats we want to all day, but when Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons were the headband brothers, and you look at why they decided to do that, was to make a commitment defensively, to try to be better as a unit defensively. What does that tell you about this group? Again, so many great things came out of the Kevin Garnett interview, but defensively, what their identity wants to be.
Well, they are capable of being a great defensive team, as they showed glimpses last year. I mean, ranking 3rd in defensive rating last year, obviously just 11th this year with the addition of Butler. But you also have to think they're a little thin on the perimeter in defense. And so they have to make up a lot in what you spoke to earlier, just rely heavily on Butler to not only put the ball in the basket in the closing minutes, but also be able to defend the best player on the other team. They have the ability to switch with size like Ben Simmons, and also they have the will. They want to be a good defensive team. They know that to win a championship, they have to be. And Ben Simmons has gone on record saying that he wants to be Defensive Player of the Year. Joel is a candidate for that, so they have all the pieces.
And again, that right there speaks to what I just talked about. Like, you know, it used to be like you'd hear guys when they'd come into the league, you heard different, you know, I want to be an iconic player. I want to be an all-time great. People, oh, that's Eric. No, that's a belief that you got to have. Like, you got to set those goals for yourself if you really want to be great. If you want to aspire to the highest level, you don't come in saying, man, I just want to be a journeyman. You know, I just want to play in the NBA for 12 years or 15 years. No, I want to leave my stamp on the game, and that's what I think those guys have. Now, granted, the statistics may not bear it out, but I can guarantee you they're better prepared for the postseason with Jimmy Butler. No disrespect to what you get with Covington, who's a really good player, and Saric, but they have another guy that can make every play, whether it be score it, defend it, rebound it, pass it when it matters. They didn't have that last year. He gives them that in those big moments, those critical winning times as they progress and get better. Yeah, the bench is not where they probably would want it, but they're closer to their goals now than they were 2 months ago.
You say in winning time, in the clutch, having that right player. The team they're playing tonight, the Portland Trail Blazers, have that in Damian Lillard for